Welcome back to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we recalibrate your biology and rediscover your direction. I'm your host, Brandon Soyka. If your body feels slower, weaker, or like it's not bouncing back the way it used to, this episode is for you. When most people feel physically drained or fragile, they assume they need a new workout plan or a better supplement. But those are just tactics. What's often missing is a deeper understanding of what's drifting underneath your strength at the cellular level. Today, we're going to explore what I call strength drift. It's not just about losing muscle or endurance. It's about losing access to your repair systems, your ability to heal, regenerate, and adapt under stress. And if you've been doing all the right things but still feel like your body is slower to recover, more prone to injury, or less responsive to training, then you're probably not dealing with a discipline issue. You're dealing with a biological signal that's been disrupted. This is the strength and domain of the Metabolic Compass, and by the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly how to begin rebuilding it. When we talk about strength, we often think of muscle mass or power output. But real strength, biological strength, isn't just about performance. It's about resilience. It's about how well your body can recover, how quickly your tissues regenerate, and how long you can go without breaking down. Strength is durability. It's the ability to repair micro damage from training, to keep your joints healthy under stress, and to heal, not just cope, when life throws you curveballs. Strength doesn't always decline with age. It declines when the underlying hallmarks of repair start to fail. And that often starts decades before we see obvious signs of sarcopenia or bone loss. If you've noticed, you're more sore after a workout than you used to be, your joints feel stiffer in the morning, your ankle sprain from 3 months ago still hasn't healed, or even something subtle like your posture slouching more by the end of the day. These are not just aging. They're not just wear and tear. These are biological drift signals. So what's actually happening under the hood? The repair crews inside your body, stem cells, telomeres, and immune signaling, are losing coordination. You're not rebuilding fast enough to keep up with the breakdown. Over time, that creates a gap, a space where inflammation builds, where healing lags, and where energy gets siphoned away from muscle and bone and into defense mode. So imagine your body as a construction site. When you're young or metabolically aligned, you've got an entire crew on site, fresh materials, active repair workers, and blueprints that actually get followed. But over time, especially under chronic stress, poor sleep, under recovery, or inflammatory diets, those workers get tired. Some go missing. Some start giving the wrong instructions. Others just stand there doing nothing. That's what happens with telomere shortening. Your DNA can't replicate cleanly anymore. Cellular senescence, damaged cells don't leave, they linger and block new growth. Stem cell exhaustion, you're not producing enough new builders to replace what's lost. This is why you might feel slower even if you're exercising. This is why your injuries linger longer. It's not about your gym routine, it's about your biological terrain. And one of the most frustrating things, this drift often goes unnoticed until you push yourself. You might look fine at rest, but try to lift heavy, sprint, or even recover from a cold, and suddenly your capacity feels off. But here's the good news. Strength can be rebuilt, not just from the outside in, but from the inside out. And that's what the rest of today's episode is all about. How to rebuild the terrain that gives you structural resilience. The kind of strength that makes you hard to kill, hard to break, and fully capable of showing up in your life, physically, emotionally, and biologically. Coming up next, we'll break down the 3 cellular hallmarks that silently erode your strength and how to start reversing the process. If your body feels like it's losing strength, not just in muscle, but in recovery, regeneration, or resilience, it's not random. It's the result of 3 biological hallmarks that silently drift over time, often without obvious symptoms, until your body finally says enough. The 3 culprits behind strength drift are telomere attrition, cellular senescence, and stem cell exhaustion. These might sound like scientific terms, but I'm going to break them down in a way that makes them crystal clear, because once you see them, you can start reversing them. Hallmark 1, telomere attrition, the frayed ends of repair. Let's start with telomeres. These are the protective caps at the end of your DNA, like the little plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time your cells divide, your telomeres shorten just a bit. That's normal. But when your body is under constant stress, whether it's poor sleep, blood sugar swings, unresolved inflammation, or emotional burnout, That shortening speeds up. Think of it like this. Each time your cells replicate to heal a joint, grow new muscle, or regenerate after an injury, they're snipping a bit off of the end of your DNA. The shorter the telomere, the less accurate and clean the replication becomes. Eventually, it's like photocopying a photocopy over and over. The signal fades and the errors creep in. This matters for strengthening because without clean replication, your tissues don't regenerate efficiently. Instead of rebuilding strong, they rebuild weak, like patching a brick wall with wet cardboard. That's when you start seeing slower healing from workouts or injury, poor tissue integrity, and a tendency to accumulate damage instead of clearing it. Hallmark 2, cellular senescence, the zombies in your tissues. Next is cellular senescence. When cells get too damaged to function properly, your body is supposed to either repair them or remove them. But as we age or live under constant metabolic stress, some of those damaged cells don't leave. They linger. These cells are called senescent cells. And they're not just lazy, they're disruptive. They sit in your tissues, spewing out inflammatory signals and gumming up the communication network that tells your body how to repair. Imagine trying to rebuild a house, but half your workers are drunk, yelling nonsense, and refusing to leave the site. That's what senescent cells do. And they accumulate more in muscle, bone, and connective tissue as you drift deeper into the strengthened domain. Symptoms of this? You feel inflamed but not injured. You feel stiff or tight for no obvious reason. You stop responding to your training stimulus. And worse, you start feeling older than your age. This isn't just aging. It's your body's internal coordination system falling apart, and senescent cells are jamming the signal. Hallmark number 3, stem cell exhaustion, when the rebuilders burn. Finally, the backbone of all repair, stem cells. Your body relies on these master cells to regenerate damaged tissue. Whether it's skin, muscle, bone, or even your immune system, stem cells are the origin point. But under chronic stress or biological misalignment, these cells start to burn out. Some become inactive, others start dividing improperly, and some get wiped out entirely, leaving you with a biological construction site and no workers to rebuild it. When stem cell exhaustion sets in, you don't just recover slower, you lose the capacity to heal at all. That's when you start noticing old injuries never quite heal right. Minor cuts or bruises take longer to fade. Muscle mass becomes harder to build or maintain. And your body's bounce back gets flatter and flatter. And again, this can happen decades before you hit old age, especially if you've pushed hard, burned the candle at both ends, or gone through years of low-grade inflammation, blood sugar instability, or nutrient depletion. Here's what's most important. These hallmarks don't act in isolation. Shortened telomeres lead to senescent cells. Senescent cells send out inflammatory signals that drain stem cell reserves. And when stem cells run low, your telomeres shorten faster because your body can't replace damaged cells efficiently. It's a vicious loop, but one that can be interrupted. And that's what we're going to talk about next, how to rebuild biological strength from the inside out, so your body not only feels strong again, but actually functions like it's been restored. In the next segment, I'll walk you through the exact nutrients and interventions that improve tissue repair, stem cell resilience, and anti-senescent signaling. When people think about getting stronger, they usually think about lifting weights, eating more protein, or taking creatine. And yes, those have their place. But if you're drifting in the strengthened domain, your body isn't just tired, it's struggling to repair. To truly rebuild biological strength, we need to go deeper than surface level recovery. That means addressing the cellular, mitochondrial, and inflammatory signals that either support regeneration or block it. And that starts with the right nutrients. Let's break down the tools that help you turn back the biological clock on weakness, fragility, and slow repair. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA. These long-chain fatty acids don't just support heart and brain health, they regulate the inflammatory tone of your entire system. In the context of the strengthened drift, Omega-3s help shift your body away from a constant damage response and towards a rebuild mode. They also help clear out senescent cells and improve membrane fluidity, which is key for cellular signaling during tissue repair. In short, they help calm the static so your cells can actually hear the signal to rebuild. Dose matters. For anti-senescent and anti-inflammatory effects, aim for at least 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day, ideally from high-quality fish oil or algae-based sources. Collagen and glycine. If your joints feel creaky, your skin is thinning, or you're not recovering from injuries like you used to, collagen peptides are worth serious attention. But here's what's often missed. Collagen works best when paired with glycine, one of the amino acids that drives connective tissue synthesis and supports methylation balance. Glycine also acts as an anti-inflammatory modulator and helps stabilize redox signaling inside cells. This becomes critical when you're trying to repair tissue that has been under stress for too long. Aim for 10 to 15 grams of collagen peptides daily, paired with at least 2 grams of glycine, or choose a formula where the glycine is already built in. Bonus points if you time it 1 hour before loading the tissues through walking, mobility work, or strength training, because tissue repair is responsive to mechanical loading. Creatine. Creatine is one of the most researched supplements in existence, but its benefits go far beyond strength or muscle. Creatine helps recharge ATP, the energy currency inside your cells, and has been shown to support brain energy metabolism, cellular hydration, and even reduce inflammation in aging tissues. This is especially important when mitochondrial dysfunction and stem cell exhaustion are present. By buffering cellular energy, creatine allows your repair systems to work more efficiently, especially in energy-intensive processes like muscle regeneration or joint recovery. Aim for 3 to 5 grams daily, preferably with a meal. And if you're plant-based or over 40, creatine is even more important. Urolithin A precursors. Urolithin A is a compound produced by your gut microbiome if you eat enough elagitannins found in pomegranates, walnuts, and some berries, and if you have the right microbes to convert it. Why does this matter? Urolithin A triggers mitophagy, the recycling of dysfunctional mitochondria, and improves muscle endurance and mitochondrial efficiency in both animals and humans. If your strength is fading, your cells may be full of broken mitochondria that are just taking up space without contributing to energy production. Urolithin A helps clear them out and make room for stronger ones. You can get precursors from pomegranate extract or elagitannate tannin-rich foods, but if you want targeted support, look for standardized Urolithin A supplements, many of which are now backed by clinical trials. Senolytics. As we discussed earlier, senescent cells act like inflammatory squatters. You can't rebuild strength if they're flooding your system with chaos. That's where senolytic compounds come in. 2 of the most studied are quercetin and fisetin, both plant-derived polyphenols shown to help clear out senescent cells, especially when pulsed intermittently rather than taken daily. This pulsing mimics natural cellular cycles and gives your body a chance to respond without triggering adaptation resistance. A typical protocol might involve quercetin of 500 to 1,000 milligrams and fisetin 100 to 500 milligrams taken 2 to 3 days per month. Always cycle these and talk to your healthcare provider, especially if you're taking medications. The last thing I'll say here is timing matters. If you're taking collagen but never loading your joints or fascia, you'll miss out on repair. If you're taking creatine but sleeping only 5 hours, you won't fully recover. Biological strength requires synchronization, getting your nutrients, your movement, your rest, and your nervous system aligned in the same direction. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next, how to train your body for resilience without draining it. When most people feel weak or slow, their instinct is to push through. Add more sets, go heavier, do something extreme to try to force the progress. While that might have worked in your 20s or even your early 30s, it can completely backfire when you're in a state of strength and drift. Because when your system is already overwhelmed by cellular clutter, senescent cells, and mitochondrial slowdown, more stress doesn't trigger adaptation, it triggers breakdown. This segment is about training smarter, not softer. That starts with rethinking what movement looks like when your biological strength is down, not just your motivation. Think regenerative training, not just resistance training. Muscle mass matters, no doubt. It protects you from age-related decline, improves insulin sensitivity, and helps regulate inflammation. But here's the nuance most people miss. Your body can only adapt to the amount of stress it can recover from. If your cells are already inflamed or your mitochondria are underperforming, a high-volume, high-intensity lifting program might tip you further into dysfunction, not towards repair. So the first principle here is regenerative loading. That means short, high-quality sets, not burnout sessions. Intentional, eccentric work, slowing the lowering phase of movements to rebuild tissue tension. Mechanical tension without metabolic overload. This could look like 3 to 4 compound lifts twice per week with full recovery between sets. The goal is to signal strength, not force adaptation when the body isn't ready. Step 2. Layer in movement snacks. Movement can't only happen during your workout. It has to be spread throughout the day to keep glucose regulation, lymphatic flow, and circadian signals active. One of the most underrated tools here is movement snacking. Short bursts of walking, mobility, or light activity every 60 to 90 minutes. This light movement keeps glucose stable by increasing insulin-independent uptake into muscle, improves blood flow and nitric oxide signaling, and reduces the cumulative inflammatory burden of being sedentary. Even a 5-minute walk after meals improves blood sugar handling dramatically. And if you can combine it with sunlight, barefoot contact with the ground, or nasal breathing, now you're creating a multi-sensory recovery input that helps rebuild biological rhythm, not just burn calories. Step 3. Train the mind-muscle mitochondrial loop. This is where movement goes from mechanical to metabolic to mental. Your mitochondria respond not only to physical tension, but also to neurochemical signals. In strength and drift, one of the earliest signs is disconnection from body awareness. You might feel clumsy, slow, or like your proprioception is off. That's not just aging. That's loss of neuromuscular communication. To restore that, include unilateral training, single leg or single arm movements to restore side-to-side balance, tempo work to rebuild neuromuscular control, and closed chain movements like squats, deadlifts, and planks that rebuild the fascial slings connecting your limbs to your core. You're not just building strength, you're rebuilding the internal GPS of your movement system. Step 4. Know when to push and when to pause. Strength restoration is not a linear process. There will be days where you feel like your old self, strong, stable, sharp, and other days where everything feels heavy and uncoordinated. This is not failure. This is recalibration. One of the most powerful things you can do during this process is to track readiness. You don't need a fancy Oura ring or Whoop band. They do help though. You can simply track morning HRV, heart rate variability, resting heart rate, grip strength or vertical jump, subjective energy, and motivation levels. When readiness is low, scale the intensity and focus on restoration. When it's high, that's when you push the envelope, safely and intentionally. Ultimately, rebuilding physical strength is about restoring feedback loops between brain and body, load and recovery, signal and response. When those loops are clear, you stop guessing and start adapting. You stop chasing PRs and start building the foundations for longevity strength, resilience that lasts for decades, not just weeks. In the next segment, we'll talk about how sleep, circadian rhythms, and nighttime recovery complete the strength equation, and what to do when your recovery has gone off the rails. There's a phrase in strength and conditioning that says, you don't grow in the gym, you grow in recovery. And nowhere is that more biologically true than during sleep. But if your sleep is broken, fragmented, shallow, or misaligned, your body can't rebuild strength, even if your training is perfect. In this segment, we're going to break down how deep recovery resets are essential to restoring strength drift and what actually interferes with those processes on a cellular level. When you sleep, especially during slow wave sleep, stage 3, your body enters a repair mode. Growth hormone spikes, tissue repair accelerates, and your brain's lymphatic system kicks in to clear out misfolded proteins and cellular debris. That's not a nice to have, it's essential. Because when you're in strength drift, you already have senescent cells, mitochondrial dysfunction, and oxidative stress clogging up your system. If you're not sleeping deeply, your body's cleanup crew never clocks in. And this matters beyond muscle. Without deep sleep, your mitochondria can't regenerate, your muscle protein synthesis plummets, your inflammatory markers stay elevated, and your dopamine tone and motivation don't reset. This is why people who sleep poorly often say, "I feel weaker in the morning than when I went to bed." That's not psychological, it's metabolic reality. But sleep isn't just about quantity. It's about timing and hormonal alignment. Your body runs on a 24-hour circadian rhythm that controls not only sleep, but also testosterone, cortisol, insulin, and growth hormone, the very hormones that regulate strength and recovery. If your circadian rhythm is off, you could be sleeping 8 hours and still waking up exhausted. Here's how to bring that back online. Get light in your eyes within 30 minutes of waking. This anchors your internal clock and sets the countdown for melatonin release at night. Morning light equals better sleep. Delay caffeine intake by 90 minutes. Caffeine too early can blunt the natural cortisol awakening response, leading to a bigger crash later and disrupting nighttime sleep cycles. Shut down screens and bright lights 1 to 2 hours before bed. Blue light suppresses melatonin. If you're working late under harsh light, your brain stays wired and your recovery stalls. And lastly, anchor your sleep and wake times even on the weekends. A drifting schedule confuses your internal clocks and creates jet lag without ever leaving your time zone. Beyond circadian cues, your nervous system needs to shift out of fight or flight to enter deep recovery. But here's the problem. Many people go to bed in a sympathetic state, scrolling, planning, worrying, or even watching intense TV. The solution? Create a wind-down protocol that signals to your body it's safe to rebuild now. Here's some tools. Nasal breathing activates the vagus nerve. Weighted blankets promotes parasympathetic tone. Magnesium and glycine calms excitatory neurotransmitters. Gentle mobility work or stretching clears physical tension. Novel calming routines like candlelight, journaling, warm herbal tea, or body scanning. The key is consistency. When your body starts to associate these inputs with safety, it begins to release the brakes on deep restoration. It's tempting to track sleep stages with a wearable and obsess over deep sleep percentage or REM cycles. But don't lose the forest for the trees. What really matters here is, do you wake up feeling stable and clear-headed? Do you feel stronger, not just less tired? Is your recovery capacity improving week over week? Because you can't will your way out of strength drift. You have to recover your way out of it. So if you've been training harder, eating cleaner, but still feeling weaker, the missing piece might not be your willpower. It might be your nighttime rhythm. In the next segment, we'll explore something most people never connect to strength at all: your dopamine tone, reward circuitry, and how emotional burnout hijacks your ability to rebuild physical power. There's a kind of fatigue that no supplement can touch. It's not just tired. It's the feeling that you're not the person you used to be. You don't trust your stamina like you used to. You question whether you can still perform at the level others expect. You doubt whether you even want to anymore. This is what emotional burnout looks like in the strength domain. And it's different from the energy crashes of mitochondrial dysfunction or the wired and tired chaos of burnout. This is about loss of personal resilience, loss of self-belief, loss of the rhythm that once made you feel solid, and it doesn't happen overnight. For many of us, being the strong one isn't just a personality trait, it's an identity. You're the one who carries the weight, the one who holds the line when everyone else falls apart, the one who doesn't crack under pressure. But that strength often comes at a cost. You become so good at pushing through, at compartmentalizing, suppressing, overfunctioning, that eventually your system adapts around the performance, and the real signals get buried. You don't realize how much you've depleted until one day something cracks. You injure easier. You heal slower. You dread things you used to take in stride. You lose the internal feedback loop that tells you, I've got this. This isn't weakness. It's exhausted fortitude, and it's reversible, but not by pushing harder. Strength and drift isn't just mental, it's biological. Long-term overactivation of your HPA axis, the brain-adrenal communication pathway, leads to flattened cortisol rhythms, impaired tissue repair, and even hippocampal shrinkage, which affects memory and stress processing. You lose muscle mass not just from inactivity, but from the catabolic dominance of chronic stress hormones that break down tissue to keep you moving in survival mode. You also see reduced anabolic drive. Your body no longer prioritizes building because it's too busy defending. That's why strength and drift feels like you're aging overnight. The joints ache, muscles feel brittle, your recovery from anything slows down. So what does it take to get your strength back? Not willpower, not another 30-day challenge, and not motivational quotes. It takes a rebuild rhythm, a set of small, strategic changes that tell your body it's safe to invest in strength again. Here's what actually works. Reestablish a daily anchor ritual. A morning or evening routine that's predictable and grounding restores rhythm to your stress response system. It could be as simple as a 10-minute walk, journaling with coffee, or stretching before bed. Prioritize slow, controlled resistance. You don't need to go heavy, but reintroducing slow, eccentric strength work like tempo squats, isometric holds, or body weight push-ups reminds your nervous system that strength can be rebuilt safely. Integrate breath-driven movement. Techniques like nasal breathing during lifting, box breathing after workouts, or humming through stretches activates your parasympathetic nervous system and accelerates recovery. Rebuild confidence with micro wins. Choose one physical action per day that reinforces your identity as someone strong. It might be lifting a kettlebell, going for a walk with your child, or simply standing with better posture. Identity rebuilds one repetition at a time. And lastly, protect recovery like it's your job. That means sleep, protein, mobility, and space. Psychological space to reset between roles and responsibilities. Without margin, strength has nowhere to regrow. When you've lived in survival mode long enough, rebuilding strength can feel almost foreign. Like you're starting from nothing. But you're not. You've got scar tissue. You've got experience. You've got a nervous system that remembers strength, even if you've been disconnected from it. This process isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before you had to carry it all. If you made it this far into the episode, you're probably resonating with the signs of strength and drift. That slow erosion of confidence, capacity, and structural resilience. And maybe more than anything, you're ready to do something about it. But the way we rebuild strength inside the Metabolic Compass framework is different than what you'll hear from typical fitness influencers or biohackers. We don't throw a heavy program at an already stressed out system. We rebuild rhythm first, then stability, then strength. Because your body doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to permission. So here's what I want to give you today, a permission slip. To start small, to rebuild strong, and to know exactly where to begin. The 2-week strength reset is a rhythm-first framework designed to help you reconnect with your body, reintroduce load and tension without injury, and reset your anabolic-catabolic balance. And restore a sense of identity that says, I can trust myself again. Let's walk through the daily rhythm of this reset, then I'll give you a way to make it your own. Start the day with a deliberate anchor. It could be a light mobility session, like cat-cows, deep squat holds, or wall angels, or a walk in natural light to reset cortisol rhythm and dopamine tone. Pair this with hydration and minerals, a pinch of salt and a squeeze of citrus in water to help restore blood pressure stability and muscle responsiveness, especially if you've been chronically stressed. And if you're ready, add a 5-minute activation circuit, air squats, push-ups, and planks, not to break a sweat, but to remind your body it's still capable. Make lunch your primary protein meal. Aim for 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein, especially if your recovery or lean mass has declined. Add movement snacks throughout the afternoon. Walk 5 to 10 minutes after meals, stretch between tasks, or do a few slow resistant movements. The goal isn't volume, it's consistency. Reinforce identity with a micro win. This might mean taking the stairs instead of the elevator, finishing the project you've been avoiding, holding a plank for 30 seconds longer. It's about proving to yourself, I follow through. Here's where most people go wrong. They skip recovery, they wonder why the strength doesn't come back. Your PM ritual should include magnesium and glycine to support relaxation and muscle repair, screen dimming and ambient light to signal melatonin, and ideally a parasympathetic wind down, humming, breathing, or stretching under dim lights. This tells your body the work is done, now we rebuild. From this episode, pick one habit in each category. Nutrition. This could be 30 grams of protein at lunch or magnesium glycinate before bed. Movement. Zone 2 cardio, strength microset, or mobility routine. Recovery. Wind down ritual, journaling, or screen dimming. Stimulation. Reduce screen time, replace with outdoor time or novelty. You don't need to do everything at once. Remember, consistency compounds. Rebuilding strength isn't about force, it's about sequence. And the strength domain will not respond to overload. It will respond to the signal of stability. If you're not sure whether strength drift is your dominant pattern, or if you're also dealing with issues of energize, nurture, or withdraw, take the drift quiz at themetaboliccompass.com/quiz. It's free. It takes just a few minutes and will help you figure out exactly where to start. You'll get personalized recommendations and a reset framework tailored to your drift domain because healing starts with knowing where you've drifted. In the next episode, we shift into the withdrawal domain, the deepest layer of cellular regeneration and recovery. Episode 28 is titled, How to Reset the Withdrawal Domain When Your Brain and Body Shut Down. We'll explore the hallmarks of epigenetic drift, impaired autophagy, and lost intercellular communication, and show you how to begin restoring clarity, signal, and deep repair. I'll see you there. You've been listening to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we bridge cutting-edge science with real-life application to help you reclaim your health one directional shift at a time. To learn more, visit us at www.themetaboliccompass.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Metabolic Compass. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps others find their way back to alignment too. Recalibrate your biology, rediscover your direction.